This is the War Room Roundtable podcast, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant businessmen and women on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on the road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their successes into your life and business. The War Room Roundtable is brought to you by your hosts, Jason Miller, CEO of Strategic Advisor Board, and Phillip Lanos, CEO of Own the Rhythm, and former podcast host for Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine. Zach, it's so awesome to have you here, man. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm great. Happy Friday. Feeling good. It's been a good week, so can't complain.
You know, when I first came across Clay and, this brainchild that you've created here for businesses, I was at a co-working space and a buddy of mine named Tim Kaysen was like, "Are you on Clay yet?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, he starts showing me on his phone. He's like, "And it's got a web app." And I'm like, hold on, because when I first heard of any kind of thing like this, there was a hip hop artist that had come up with a product that sort of purported to do this, but then I never saw or heard anything of it ever again. And I know it exists out there, and we could talk about that later. Like, I can bring it up if you want. But for me, I was like, dude, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because I've done over 2,000 interviews and have no idea how to stay in touch with everyone. Right. So this was already for me brilliant. And then I go in and you've got a clean interface, clean design. Anybody who's an entrepreneur who's too busy, even if they have a personal assistant, but wants to maintain their relationships, for me, I was like, the value prop speaks for itself. But I want to know, now that I've laid that groundwork, I want to know what Zach was doing when he said to himself, this is something I'm going to commit to, because it takes work to build something good. And that's a big commitment you undertook. So where were you in your life when this decided to be the thing for you?
Love it. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, and really appreciate the kind words. We pay a lot of attention to the details and a lot of attention to all the things you described. So it's great to hear that in real people's experiences that it actually hits in the way that we think. So let me start with our background. So my co-founder Matt and I met way back 10, 11 years ago. And, we never imagined we'd be co-founders. We were just friends in a co-working space, working on two sort of related, but very different companies. So his was in the design space. He was a designer. He was working at this company called Layer Vault. They had a community called Designer News. It was the biggest community of designers online. And I was working on a dev tools company for developers. And we bonded basically over how similar our experiences were at each of those companies, how much we love design, how much we love brand, how much we love building things and building product, but also how tough early stage startups can be, and B, how much the relationship between the founders matters. Like what you really don't realize, like, everybody says the same things around, it's a relationship. It's like having a partner, it's like having a, significant other. You have to spend time in the relationship, but you don't realize it until you are in it, doing it, that like how strained, how much shit you go through together. And so that was really the origin story of our relationship on a personal level. And we have a lot in common. Matt's an immigrant. I was first generation, and we think about people very similarly. We've had people, mentors, friends, colleagues, former coworkers, who have made a difference, who have introduced you to that person that then leads to this other thing that then happen. And so that sort of butterfly effect of, who do you know and how do you know them? And, this web of people that just, 5 years later, you're like, how did I even meet you? Like, that's crazy. Like, we're very big fans of serendipity and just randomness and chance and take, making your own luck and stuff like that. So, we've had moments in our lives that are like that. That was never more true than, our jobs after those two startups where, Matt went on to a Series A company in New York, a YC company, helped grow that and scale that on the design side and the product side. I went to Goldman Sachs, which I never imagined I would do. And I was a product manager there, helped build a product team there. They were building a SaaS product, like software to basically a Bloomberg terminal competitor. And that, I never thought I would go there. And then I met randomly this guy who I thought was the smartest person I'd ever met, and who was also crazy brilliant in meetings and sales pitches and things like that. And so I was like, I'm going to learn a ton from this team and do that for 4 years. So 4 or 5 years later, Matt and I are thinking of leaving our respective companies, and we kept coming back to this idea. We were just like, we know we've tried a bunch of products that have done this. We have LinkedIn accounts that we use every so often to sort of try to manage our networks. It never works. And the thing we kept coming back to is, Matt would jot down in an Apple note sort of after a meeting, hey, this is like what I remember we chatted about, like, kids' names or, what he needed to do, stuff like that. I would do that in Evernote. I would do that. I used to do that in Google Contacts. I would try everything to just like, who do I know? And like, who are the people that I want to spend more meaningful time with every month, every week, every quarter? And so at some point we were like, let's try and figure out if there's something here. And so that started this process, which I can go more into, but of talking to users, trying to figure out what the product was, like really like sitting down with our customers and then launching the first version of Clay. So I'm happy to talk about that. Happy to talk about more of any of the stuff I touched on there, but that's the high level of how we met and why we decided to dive deeper.
And I really appreciate you going into sort of how your personal bond was first formed, because it's like you said, if you look at the theme here, it's about people, about connection, right? And the fact that you place such an emphasis on your own relationship with your business partner and how that works just goes to show that you're in this, sure, for any number of reasons if someone goes into business, but there's an element of you truly value relationships and what that means and how to manage them and maintain them. And in a world like today, we do need a tool that helps us manage our relationships better. If anything, that helps us develop them better. And I really appreciate that that's really where the heart of your intent comes from as a team. No origin story is complete without asking, okay, Clay.Earth, right? Like the name, how did that happen? I want to hear it. What band names did you guys scrap before you decided this one?
There are a lot of names. The way we always answer that is to ask you what you think it like, what is the meaning you hear in that? And like sort of why would you, what do you think is in the name Clay?
Well, for sure, it's what makes the earth up of people, right? It's like people are the clay of the earth. That's my first impression, and hopefully that was the intent,
100%. So there was a bunch of reasons. I mean, every previous product in the space, it's like contacts, mega book, it's like, best contacts, whatever, and they're so transactional. They're so like nobody wants to use something like that. No app is called that. And so we were like, what is the direct opposite? What is the most like elemental, just more natural sounding, more authentic sounding. And so we went through a bunch of ideas. We like Clay for a bunch of reasons. Earth, it's what makes up the earth. Also, it's like moldable, right? You can like mold clay, it hardens over time. Like you've got that whole element of it. And then, the .earth, we just like, we needed a TLD. We needed like a .com. The .com was taken. So we went down the list, and that was the one that it was the most fun. I think it was like the most like memorable and stuff, but we that's why we chose it. And then we had our logo was done by the very great designer Mackie Saturday, who designed Instagram's logo and a bunch of other Oculus and all those. So so there was a lot of love, and he loved the idea that it was similarly like very natural and fun and whimsical, but also like a beautiful a name. So
I love this. Do you yourself, keep in mind the audience is always, at least the ones that listen to anything I have to say, are actual business owners, from small business owners to copywriters to people who run CBD companies, out in Minnesota or something, or even entrepreneurs that own a couple of LLCs and a staffing agency. The list goes on, and so they don't believe in email often, and Slack gets crazy. So in your own stack, in your own day-to-day, where have you found that for you as the creator of the product, Clay has really taken the stage? Is it center stage in terms of portal communication for you, or where do you see it? And I'll say this, right? It's like uh Apple has developed the tablet, right, and the laptop and the desktop, and yet people are always pushing for the tablet to replace the laptop. But Apple says no, there's a place for that, and there's a place for this. So I'm interested in hearing that. And I know you're on the dev team, but you're also, this is your child, so I imagine you have some
Yeah.
thoughts on this.
No, that's a great question. And haven't been asked that before. I think so. Let me start a little bit with some of the user, like the user interviews we did and why we built Clay the way we did. And there were a lot of decisions there. I think we interviewed a lot of freelancers, entrepreneurs, people, in that demographic. And in our minds, that was actually the perfect demographic, right? Because your network is not your LinkedIn. It's not your email. It is everywhere, and everybody can be considered a part of it. And so what we realized was that for that group, but also for, professionals in big companies, the lines between personal and professional were blurring, right? Like you have friends who become coworkers, you have coworkers who become friends outside of work. And so the thing we were trying to figure out is like, no one tool has a full picture of who your network is. And your contacts app, that skews a little bit more personal. You might text somebody that, you're meeting up with for work, like all of those things, all the communications are everywhere. And so one of our real, our core philosophies when we started was that's totally okay. And actually we should lean into that. We don't need you to be adding friends in Clay, right? We don't need to be the next LinkedIn from a like social networking perspective, because you have a bunch of other social networks that you use, and you use them for, your network. You put different communication and content on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, and all of those are different. And so let's treat them differently. All we care about is being, and the big picture and the big brain thinking here is that we want to be that source of record for people, the source of truth, or the source of record for people, right? So like how all of those people live across all those places, let's be that and sort of give you a full picture of everybody. And so to do that right, you got to do a lot of work. You got to do a lot of engineering work, design work, product work, whatever. But for freelancers, for people that are running their own business, that's not like, you don't have a CRM, right? Like where you put all of your leads and contacts or everything. Most people don't. Same with, to your point, like most people, it might be contacts. It might be, you might not even be an email, right? So you might be on Instagram, just like being on DMs or Facebook or whatever. So for us, that was like totally okay. And so the way I use it, I use Clay for two main things. I'll put three main things. The first is after a chat with somebody, that note that you were going to put somewhere, put it in Clay, because it's going to be better. It's going to be more useful. You're going to come back to it later. Anytime we remind you about that person in the future, you'll have the full history of how you know them. So that's number one. Number two, I use Clay for search. So the thought that you have of like, who is that person I met in 2015 in LA when I was at that place, like just type that into our search box and we will find that person for you. And that is not something you can do anywhere else. People open up their calendar, they open up their email, they open up LinkedIn, and they're like, who is that person? And the reality is, our brains and the way we think about people search, you think about it by time, you think about it by place, you have like all these weird like ways of remembering people that most search anything else will not do right. And so that's what we spent a lot of time building out. And then the third thing is for reminders. And so Clay by default, we call it Reconnect. Clay by default will remind you about 3 people every day that you haven't talked to in a while. And we do that with a bunch of AI and a bunch of very complicated things. But at the end of the day, we reduce that down to here's 3 people. We're not telling you need to reach back out to them. All we're telling you is to think about them. And the concept of thinking about expanding the number of people you can think about at any given week or month is a pretty powerful idea when you think about it, because there's a bunch of psychological research and economics research around this thing called Dunbar's number, where you can only really have 150 people in your head at any given time, right? If I ask you to like write down the names of everybody you can think of, you're gonna max out at 150. Most people don't even get there, right? But the reality is that our digital networks, our digital social networks are much, much larger than that. And all of the good stuff in your professional life, in your personal life, happens when when you're in the shower and two of those neurons connect and you're like, oh my God, that person should meet that person, or I need to email that person for that thing that I need, because then that will result in this other thing happening. And all of that, that's all the serendipity and luck stuff that we talk about. All of that happens because you just remember the person's name for like a flash of a second. And so that's what we want to do. We just want to do that in a really lightweight way. And most other tools are just forced. They're trying to get you to reach out and talk and like or subscribe or reach out to the person on Facebook or whatever. And we don't need that. We just want you are good at what you are, best at. And so we just want you to keep, if anything, even doubling that number would be massive for the amount of business your business can generate, the amount of relationships you can have, your happiness and your success in your personal life. All of that sort of follows from that. So that's why we lean so heavily into that. So those are the three things that I do with Clay. And we have people who use it. They run their business on it. They have a bunch of other people on it. They add people in Clay before they add it to their contacts. That's all nice. But, even if you just sign up for Clay and have a database or a place where you can go, where that you can search for someone and find them reliably, that is actually enough for most people to be like, this is a game changer for me. So that's sort of the workflow question, but there's a lot of stuff there. And there's a lot of stuff even left for us to build. So yeah.
For me, I was thinking Dunbar's number just before you said it. And when you said it, I said, yes, what a mission to push the boundaries of what Dunbar thought was possible, right? Like that is an incredible statement to make, because in a world where we're more connected than ever, yet feel more disconnected than ever, it's cool to have that. And to add to the sauce there, it's a lot like podcasting, where, you could watch a video and, it takes all your attention. You got to sit there. Or you can do what podcasting does, which is it's a companion to your everyday life, right? In terms of positioning. And I'm a digital marketer, so like in the background, I'm always thinking about how these things fit, know? And for me, I just think there's so much. I can understand how you can look at a company like yours and go, okay, we're going to have to really decide what we're focusing on, because we could go anywhere with this. And kudos on the name, because it's true. Some people name their company or their product based on SEO, and it's like, oh, they're going to find us here. And it's like, come on, man. And then you become corny. Or you can stake a claim, and you can put a stake in the ground, claim that stake, and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're called. You're either going to love it or hate it, but this is what we are. And it's original, unique, and it has its own identity. And I respect that, because often, I can't think of how many marketing agencies, let's say, since that's where I'm from, can claim that they add marketing agency to the back to their title of everywhere you look. It's like, we get it.
Yep.
But SEO is kind of on its way out too, because that's a whole other conversation. So let me ask you this: we know where you came from. We see where you are right now, and I know there's a lot of developments in the pipeline happening there. But for you, as one of the leaders of this company and the vision, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think it would be a missed opportunity if I didn't ask someone like you on the cutting edge of technology with the experiences that you have. Often business owners, we're going to slide into, I think, just pure value for the listener, regardless, agnostic of your product, right? Just you as an entrepreneur. All the time, entrepreneurs, business owners are faced with trying to get their vision out of their head and to their team. And being able to get the feedback to be able to check in on the team and make sure that vision and everyone is on the same page, right? So for you, what does that process look like? And do you find that you face challenges there just like every other owner?
Wow. Yeah, great question. So my co-founder, Matt, and I do a lot of that. He's spectacular at it. And I think the thing we've learned is there's a few core learnings, I would say. The first is the world's changing around you. You're constantly, responding to new stimuli, new, competitors, new customers or opportunities. And you have to constantly balance the sort of I'm going to commit to this for a period of time long enough to figure out whether it's going to work or not, with being able to be nimble enough to change your mind, and respond to those new inputs. So for our team, we do a lot of sharing. We're really transparent with sort of how what's happening, what are our top level goals and metrics and OKRs, what are we trying to move towards, what do we see the environment being like at the end of the year or in the next 6 months, and what do we need to do and where do we need to get to reach that next step. So there's a lot of that. I think there's an element of storytelling there as well, where there's a lot of, as entrepreneurs, you deal with, you're inundated with information, you have a bunch of inputs that are constantly coming at you, and it's not about you have to explain. You have to synthesize that. You have to do that work for your team and be able to say, here's where we're going to go together, and we're going to be with you every step of the way here, but here's why. And here's the high level. If you want to dive deeper, here's how to do it. But they need to see some of that input and make some of those decisions themselves too, right? You have to trust your team enough to shape that process. So you have to do enough of the sort of, let's go over there, without, both micromanaging and without saying, I don't trust you to do that. You have to sort of empower your team to do that. So that's another thing. And then the last one that I think my lesson from my first startup and then now here is that there is so much that is outside of your control. There is so much that you can do, and maniacal focus is important, but also being really brutal about what matters and what doesn't, and realizing that most stuff doesn't. Like most times the feature you build will not matter. The way you build it will not matter. What you call your company probably won't matter. Like along the edges, it might like move everything, your chances of success up 1 percentage point or down 1 percentage point, but it is not any one of those things that does it. It is you going out there and hitting up 1% every day. And it's also finding the thing that is 100% or 200% that really like moves the needle. And if you don't have a sense of what the force magnifier, force multiplier is going to be, then you haven't thought deeply enough about how to stack rank everything. And that's something that Matt has really helped me do. And our investors as well, I've seen, and founder, people like founder advisors and people that we admire who do this, they are, you are maniacally focused on that top thing and everything else doesn't matter. And trying to figure out what that is and being honest about what you expect that thing to achieve for you. And then being honest whether, after you spend a day or a week or a month on it, like, did it do that for you and why? Why were we wrong about that? Learning from it and then feeding it back into your process so that you can get better over time. That I think is the founder's journey. It's the entrepreneur's journey. And I think you have to do that, rinse and repeat over and over again, and you're going to get it wrong. And then at some point you then realize, okay, we've got this right. And that's what we tell our team too, right? Like that's why we set those like high level markers, because they need to be able to assess on any micro decision or macro decision. How much time should I spend on this? Should I be paying attention to this at all? Or is this the most important thing that's going to make the difference in the company? And that's what you constantly have to. And so that's decision making, that's prioritization. It's really hard to do right, but when you get in the habit of it, it really does pay dividends. So that's how we think about it.
I love that. And anyone who's running and owning a software project or pretty much any business, I think can take a lot from what you said, because it is that abstract yet very concentrated, sort of like holding a magnifying glass to the sunlight and trying to find exactly where it's going to burn. Like that is what they need to find. And I love that your emphasis based on experience is saying, look, if you really can't articulate what you know is not important in your business, you need to think about that first, because that'll help you actually then eliminate all that and find out what is important. I think that's that's just experience talking right there, man. That's what that is. So I want to give you the floor, and I want to, because I want to be respectful of our time here. I I want to give you the floor so that you can tell people, number one, where do you prefer to be contacted with? And is it through Clay? and also what your call to action is to anyone out there listening that now understands not only your journey, but what your product is set out to do and where you plan to go.
Amazing. So you can sign up for the product, download the app at clay.earth. So CLAY.earth. You can, it's free to sign up, free to try. There's a free plan. So no need to upgrade, but when you upgrade, you do get full search history. You get a bunch of other nice things like delegated access. You can add your team and things like that. You can follow us on Twitter at ClayHQ, same on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Twitter at ZMH, just my initials, and then my co-founder Matt at Achariam, his last name, ACHARIAM. And we share a bunch of stuff there around company building, around sort of product and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff there. And yeah, I think the best way to experience it is to give it a try. You know, one thing that sort of principles wise at the beginning, we felt really deeply about privacy and about security. And so you can connect as much or as little as you want. We do not sell your data. Your data is yours. And there's a human readable privacy policy you can read through. So some people, connect one account, they connect their, contacts or their email or something. And then once they see the product and they're like, oh, cool, I understand this now, then they go and connect more stuff. So, that was really important to us and helping you grow alongside, your company and the more people you meet and the more, contacts you have, the more we'll grow with you. We have people that high school students that started with us when we launched 3 years ago, and now they're in college and they're using Clay and they've got their whole network there. So that's us. And then you can email us. We have we're a very small team. We are very maniacally almost focused on customer happiness and make sure you have a great experience, and we answer all of our emails. And so reach out. We are happy to onboard anybody, get you set up, and make sure that you have the best experience possible. So that's the Clay way.
Love it. Is there anything in particular you want them to know about where you plan to go, or any other places you might be attending, speaking at, showcasing anything?
No plans at the moment. We have lots of stuff in the pipeline. So, particularly for Instagram, that's, coming. We've got a bunch of other integrations. And then Windows as well, Windows and Android coming soon. So we're thinking through that. So there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, and we love hearing from people. So if there's a feature that I didn't mention or something that's like critical to your business, let us know. Just email our support team. They'll add it to the roadmap, and we read everything. We log everything. We make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of what people are looking for and what making something people want, because that's the most important thing to us. So
Zach, I can't thank you enough for, first of all, opening up a little bit about your personal journey, then how the product itself launched, where you see it fitting in the stack for everyday life, not only for your company, but for other people, and some interesting use cases, even with high schoolers. And it was such a profound conversation. And then to share your actually hard-earned experience and what it means to be an owner, and how the kind of thinking that goes into being a leader, and some of the things you'll have to do to double down on to actually get results. For me, this has been a very valuable conversation, agnostic of your own product, but yet at the same time, a great feature of what the product is and the intent behind, the integrity behind your product. So thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Phil. This is great. And big fan of the show. So keep it up, keep the interviews going. It's a valuable resource for people. And I think the more, the more that people can hear from one another about what's working and what's not, and just have honest conversations like this, then the better everybody will be. So thank you for doing it.
Thanks for listening to the War Room Roundtable with your hosts, Jason Miller and Phillip Lanos. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and always remember, if you can dream it and believe it, then you can go achieve it. We'll see you in the next episode.